Okay, I think we're okay to get started at this point. I've got everything in order. So it is now, let's see, 7:34, April 28th, 2022, and I'm calling to order the RTM Education Committee special meeting at that time. So the first thing is roll call, and I'll just go through everyone one by one. So if you can unmute and say that you're here, or we'll figure out you're not. Representative Chase?
Here.
Representative Frickman is not here right now. Representative Gunapero is
I'm
not
here.
Oh, you are? Oh,
Yeah.
right, I see you there. Yeah. Oh, I didn't see you before. Great. Excellent.
Hi.
Wonderful. And Representative Gustafson?
I'm here.
And Representative Viazzi Williams is not here, but we've got two attendees. Let me check. Okay, so still not there. And then Representative Whitney, I'm here. And we also have on our list Representative Whitehouse, but she resigned from the RTM itself, so she's no longer on the committee. So we do have quorum regardless, but just let you know that. And the next part is unfinished business. We have none. And then after that, we move on to new business. And this is where we'll consider the budget. And before we go into that, just kind of want to give you a feel for the flow of the meeting. And we can kind of adjust as we need to along the way. But we'll first go through the main education budget, that's 1080. And then we'll go through each capital improvement project. And there are 4 that we're considering this year. As we go through them, there are a couple of things to keep in mind. One, for any account that we're dealing with, we'll start off with someone making a motion of a certain dollar amount. And when we do that, it'll have to be seconded. So it'd be good if it's not me making the motion, but it can be. It'll be seconded. And then after that, actually the person who makes the motion gets to speak first. And what we can do in terms of how the meetings run, every member of the RTM committee is always allowed to ask questions. And then, I mean, officially I'm supposed to then, ask someone to answer them, but it just flows better. If you think you can answer a question, then just speak up and answer. It usually works really well that way. I don't see any other RTM members right now, but if someone else has a question, we typically would just recognize you too and move along through that. And so I mentioned our discussion starts after we make a motion for a number, but like in this meeting and any other budget meeting, there can be up to 2 other amended numbers. And it can be a number that's higher or lower than the first one that was put on board. And I'll talk about the constraints in a moment. And then that's the first amended number, and that can be discussed. And sometimes there's a third amendment number. We always vote on the most recently proposed number first, and then work our way back. But there can only be 3 numbers on at a time. And as I said, it could be above or below, but you don't go like $1 above or $10 below or something like that. And then upon proposing that number, you can make just a brief rationale for why you're proposing that. It can be as brief as I don't think we should spend as much on this budget, or I think we should put a little more in, but oftentimes it's articulated in more detail. As far as constraints on the numbers, we have as the RTM 2 bounds. One is always 0, and then we have an upper bound, and that's the highest of either the town manager's budget or the town council, whatever they did. In our case this year, well, I'll explain it, but in most cases, it's just like the big budget, it's all the same number. And then for the other ones, it's either 0 or what was in the town manager budget. And if you've got questions about that, it's fine to ask as we move along there too. let me see. Oh yeah, one thing I wanted to say is in the RTM itself, when we come in to the full RTM and vote on a number, at that point, we're voting on whether or not to approve part of a budget. In this meeting, what we're doing is we're voting on what to recommend. And because of that, because it's a recommendation coming forward to the committee, if we agree on one, it doesn't matter if we come out with a higher number or lower number than say the town council, we still, it goes by majority. That changes when we get into the RTM, because then we're voting on a budget number and different voting rules apply. But here, since it's recommendation, a majority recommendation is does go forward from our committee. That said, oftentimes someone votes in the minority, and so we don't always have consensus. And I'll write up a report, and I'll usually include the discussion either way, and you'll get to see the report. But if you feel that your views or the views of the minority weren't completely articulated, then normally we could just add them to the minutes. But you could also have the option of filing a minority report, which actually sounds kind of cool, and it can be very provocative of discussion later. So I would never take offense if we had minority reports coming out of this committee. It doesn't tend to happen, but I just want to know you to know that that's the option. And we'll get going in a moment with the accounts, but I was wondering if anyone had any questions on the process, because it has a lot of information real quickly. Some of you know it well, some of you maybe not as well. All right, and that'll all be on the test at the end, so we'll see. Okay, so that moves us on to the education account, and that's account 1080. It's education. In our budget book, this is page 166, and as information, the number that was in the town manager's budget and has been approved by the council is $79,157,271. And if I'm ever wrong on a number, let me know. So that's the information. Yeah, good. That's the information. I'm open to taking a motion for a number on the education budget 1080.
Make a motion for the 79,157,271.
Okay, do we have a second? Well, I'll second that. Would you like to kick off discussion? Representative Gustafson?
That is the proposed budget number. I've watched a few of the meetings. I've listened to some of the presentations given, and it seems reasonable. I might have a few questions, but so that's basically, where I'm coming from. I mean, it's been zero for the past 2 or 3 years. That's not really sustainable to keep a zero number, in my opinion. Costs inevitably increase. So,
does anyone have any questions at this moment?
Is this a good time to put another number on the floor?
You can always do that.
I would like to put another number on the floor of 77,438,090.
So that's 77,400,000.
438,090.
So that's 090 at the end.
Yes.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, I'm absolutely for education. I think education is power and knowledge is power. But even though there were 0% increases supposedly in the last 2 years, there really were not 0% because money was decreased from other funding, other cost line items, such as the health savings plan. Almost 800,000 was taken out last year to bring it down to 0. So when the Groton 2020 plan for the new schools was proposed to the voters, it was promised that there would be savings. We closed 9 schools, built 3. Now we're down 6 schools. There should be savings. They weren't promised cost avoidance, they were promised savings. Right now, I don't have to tell anybody here about the hard economic times that everyone is going through. And right now, the town, the way they propose the town budget, there's going to be a 7.51% increase in our taxes because of costs and the revaluation of our homes and things like that. The town is making concessions with using ARPA money for CIPs and taking $4 million out of the fund balance to get to where they need to go. In years past, every time we needed to decrease budgets, CIPs were cut. The 3 schools are absolutely gorgeous buildings. It's vibrant. They're happy places to be. I've toured all 3 of them. But if we don't fix up the rest of the town, we're going to have 3 beautiful schools and the rest of the town is going to be in rubble. And we can't cut CIPs anymore. And people in the town cannot afford a 7.51% increase in their taxes. If we keep the school budget at the current MBR, the tax increase in itself will still be around 6%. And that's still very high. But again, I mean, we can just do so much cutting. The other thing I'm concerned about with the school, about finding more cost savings, is when we don't get alliance money anymore. That's a huge chunk of money. And then the other thing I heard was that staff was being hired using ARPA funds, which is never a good idea to hire staff with temporary money unless you plan on letting them go when that money runs out. And from what I heard at the meeting was they're going to evaluate at the end of the grant period to see if they want to keep them anymore. I personally don't understand, and maybe somebody can explain, if we're down 6 schools, why we need to keep hiring staff. I don't understand that, especially with temporary money. That's, to me, it's not a good idea to do that. That'd be like buying, you get a bonus and you buy a home on that bonus, and then how do you pay for it or pay taxes on it? To me, it's not a good idea. But that's my rationale, that the taxpayers, the voters that voted for savings cannot afford a 7.51% increase in their taxes. And this revaluation is going to last for the next 5 years. So we all have to figure out how to cut expenses and we have to figure it out. So that's my rationale for that. And for new people that are on the RTM, once you increase the MBR, you cannot go below it again. So if we increase it by the 1.7 million, and say next year they didn't need that much money, there's nothing we can do about it. They will still get it. So that's my rationale.
Thank you. And I just want to point out that MBR is the minimum budget requirement. And so what Representative Chase, the number that she moved is the number from, if I've got it right, is last year's approved number. So that'd be a 0% increase compared to what we approved last year. And I think I heard a question in there but maybe it's rhetorical, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I heard a question in there for either the Board of Ed or the superintendent about how, basically, why are we still hiring staff as we've consolidated in schools? And along with that, sustainability plans for hiring someone on ARPA funds or RCASA funds, and then what happens after that. And so would that be fair to say those are questions you're putting to the board and superintendent?
That would be fair, yes.
And so if you'd like to respond to those, that'd be great.
I would be happy to respond.
And you can also, like, along with this, if you feel you'd like to kind of flesh out the budget picture more, I'll leave that up to you as well.
Thank you. So ARP ESSER funds are very different from what I can see than the town's ARPA funds. We were given very scripted directions on putting this together. We had a whole committee. We spent months putting it together. We had an ARP ESSER consultant who is a retired superintendent. We had Connecticut Association of School Superintendents authorize our plan. And the plan was for COVID-related learning loss. It meant that we needed to do due diligence to get our kids back and give them what they need because of COVID-19, 2 years of them being remote learning, hybrid learning. And within that, it was academic and it was social emotional learning. There have been a lot of challenges that our students and our families have faced. And we absolutely had a personnel section, but the personnel section was for positions like extra tutors and extra summer school and extra teachers that could be literacy coaches and math people beyond what we normally have. And the reasoning was that we have these funds until the end of 2024, and we will really gradually release because we're already seeing growth from our kids. We're seeing tremendous growth, not for all of them, but for many of them. And I assume that we will continue to do that. So these positions, we had community coordinators that we added additional responsibility because we had a lot of attendance issues and we needed help support staff within the office to make those phone calls home, using our social workers to make home visits. Our administrators, our SROs were very helpful in this, our classroom teachers. So it was like all hands on deck, says the military junior. And we knew that this was really for this time period. We also have $1 million in HVAC systems. So because of COVID-19, air quality is very important. That was one of the categories. PPEs and testing. And I can't tell you the time my administrators spent on contact tracing to make sure their buildings were as safe as possible. So those were all part of it. But let me tell you, I have a lot of leftover kits and PPEs and even custodial materials. So we were able to reduce our budget because of that, because of all those things, because of certain ARP ESSER funds. I would say that when I first came out of the gate, we had a 3.4%, and that was based on our contracted, negotiated pay raises, and our health insurance and our benefits. We really scrutinized this budget. This Board of Ed went through every line item, many, many nights. And we were able to reduce 4 FTEs, mostly at the high school, without retirements that weren't replaced. We were able to adjust severance and pensions based on the town reports. We were able to adjust health insurance based on recalculations. We reduced custodial supplies and PPEs because of state funding and the ARP ESSER. We had adjustments in liability insurance based on a town bill. Our 2 new schools basically have higher rates of insurance instead of the town taking on that expense. The school district needed to. So at the last minute, as I'm producing a budget, I had to add in that $49,000 to make sure we could cover our bills. Also, board and agency out of district placements. When you're a school district, you don't know who's going to move into town. When you're a military school district responsible for 1,200 students, and our numbers are growing. There's this Columbia class submarine that is being built at EB, and our kids are being stationed here. The parents are being stationed here. So we're going to see a large amount of growth. I just presented at a strategic deterrent coalition, and our kids sang for them. Our musicians sang, and our robotics team was there, and they awarded them $4,000 and recognized them for their performance. I was so proud. But the word out on the street is that this community is only going to be growing, and which is really good news for Groton. But I also think about our schools; they're pretty full now, and so we are really filling them up with students. We just don't know how those out of district placements, they've gone down. So have our magnet tuitions. Kids have come back. Groton Middle School brought a lot of kids back. The 5 new magnetized schools have brought a lot of kids from across the river and learn back to our schools. And then there's management of the health reserve, which Kathy spoke about. Yes, there were years that we pulled from that health reserve, but as honest stewards, we have to make sure that we have that amount, that money that is in reserve, and the money that is tell me, Ken, what are we calling those 3 layers? The red zone, the yellow zone.
Yeah, the reserve, the amount above reserve, and OPEB. Those are the.
Yeah, and so those are the 3 things. When we first got here, OPEB was not even on the board's mind, and we have really done a good job getting some of that money paid back. So, we want to be good stewards of the money. We want efficiencies. I've talked a lot about cost savings versus cost avoidance. A saving happens only the year after. An avoidance happens if you can continue that savings over time. So if you have one less staff member, let's say it's a secretary because you close down buildings, let's say it's a custodian, then you have that savings the next year, and you have that avoidance years after that. So that's just my simple definition of the difference of those things. I also want to bring to your attention that we have a 2.2% increase. And when we did the analysis across the state and district, they really, numbers range from in the 2% to like 5, 7, averaging in the 3% range. So I feel like we're even underneath. And certainly when you look at our student per pupil spending, we are very efficient. Our district makes sure that we, whether you're looking at a DERG, you're looking at the region, I think only Ledyard comes in a little less than we do. So we really, if it weren't for some of these grants, we wouldn't be able to accomplish the things that we've accomplished, and also the bonding from the town and the new schools. They are fabulous, Kathy. They, and we will take care of them and make sure that our kids get the most, not only about from the building, but from what we're doing inside the building, which is very exciting. So that's just a few things I wanted to say. We have looked at the cliff. We've looked at the numbers from our ESSER. We've actually figured out the FTEs, and the majority of that will go away because we won't need as many tutors. We won't need as many of those specialist teachers, community coordinator hours, custodial, extra support from custodial, because we're hoping that COVID-19 is in the rear view mirror eventually and not in the side view mirror as it is now, as Kim Watson would say. So, we're not there yet. A pandemic is like a war. It takes a long time to get through it. So fortunately, these ARP ESSER funds are through 2024. But we will do our due diligence. But these funds are necessary. The minimum wage is increasing. We could not find staffing. We couldn't get paraprofessionals. We couldn't get custodians. We were really and substitutes. So we were really in a predicament that the board had decided to negotiate with their paras and, extend their contract and, get them up to that minimum wage requirement. And we've started to see results from that. We've started to be able to hire some of those people that, through a child's IEP and by law, we need to have in our schools. So I just wanted to give you kind of that, for instance.
Yeah, I hope you don't take this personally at all, because
No.
I think you guys are doing a fabulous job. I really wish that when I went through the Groton system and my children went through the Groton system, that it is the way it is now. I think it's fabulous. But our job is to look out for the taxpayers, and they are struggling, and they just cannot afford a 7.51% increase overall in the budgets. Nothing personal. I think you're doing a fabulous job. I love hearing your reports and your stories about what's going on in school. And
Thank
it
you.
makes me want to be involved in it because
Good.
I think it's exciting.
You'll have to come and mentor.
I would love to
We're
do that.
growing our mentor program.
I would love to do that now that I work from home.
Yeah.
But like I said, the RTM's job is to look out for the taxpayers.
I also want to say to you that our impact aid numbers have been really good and strong. The past 3 years, we were predicting, and we put this in our budget, that we would receive about 3 million, and actually it's coming in at 4 million. For the past 3 years, the town has received 3 million extra dollars that is intended for education, but doesn't come to the education
Right.
budget. It goes into to help support. So that's 3 million extra dollars to support education or whatever the town needs. So I just want you to know that we do everything with contacting Congressman Courtney, and our staff is so careful about making sure all parents sign up for this impact aid so that we get the funding that we need for Groton Public Schools. It's really important to us.
And I'll break in and say, I recognize that Representative Frickman is now in attendance, and I noticed you at 7:56, but you can correct me if you think you're in earlier.
Nope, that's right.
All right.
Thanks, Mike.
And then my other point, I just want to let you know, right now, we had a first number on the table, which was the what was approved from the town manager, or came through from the town manager's budget, and went through, approved by town council. That was $79,157,271. And then Representative Chase moved a new number, which was the number from last year. And that is $438,090. And that's where we're at right now.
Thank you.
Mike,
Does
can I
anyone
ask-
have
can I
questions?
ask another question? I'm sorry.
Actually, let's go around the horn and let others ask
Okay,
questions.
perfect, perfect.
Actually, I've got a relatively quick one right now. Superintendent Austin, you mentioned the per student spending, and just in general that we're among the lower end. But there's actually really helpful in the education budget. I think it's like 1-7 is a really helpful chart, and then there's a table, and there are follow-up charts for that if you want to see where we fall in. Maybe that's not a question, it's just for everyone, that's a point of information. But my question was going to be in terms of projected student numbers. I know that's really tricky, even before the end of the
military.
summer. But what is on the horizon? Is there? I mean, I know there's new submarines being built and coming in, but is there a sense of what it's
At
going
this
to be?
coalition meeting, they were really talking about the need for more housing in Groton. The Balfour Beatty, which used to just serve the military population, to open its doors for more families. We don't get as much funding from impact aid from the other families. We get much more from like $3,000 a piece from the military families. And they're saying that they need to use every bit of space for their families moving in. So to me, that's very telling. They're looking for, I think this is a town decision, but it's very hard. My daughter wants to move to Groton with her 4 kids. I am looking for a condo, and they're very hard to find. It's hard to find. Even if you have some money to spend there, it's really, houses are going so fast. So you do see this robust industry. I think it's going to be really very good for Groton. We're just going to have to be ready to have the facilities that we need.
So with that, I guess I have 2 follow-ups. Are we keeping Claude Chester or Mary Morrison or anything in reserve? I think it's Mary Morrison that's still with us. Is that partially for that reason? And then my
Yes,
other
we are.
question. Okay. And then my other question is about the impact aid. I've always remembered that we're always worried about being at the right percent level of, and it's not just military, but it's also defense industries and
Right.
it's
Reservation.
yes, reservations
Reservation.
too. So where are we at with that threshold now? It seems like we're not as close to it anymore. It seems like there's some buffer now.
We definitely have been on the higher side. I think Congressman Courtney had written a bill when President Trump was still in office, and he signed off on it. And then he did another bill with President Biden. And so we really received that, you know, kind of specially framed, so that what that meant was that we were able, because of COVID, we were able to keep the numbers that we had in the past. However, I believe that when we start really gathering the numbers and, you know, and maybe even doing it online to help families, we're going to see an increase. We're already feeling it. The numbers that the Navy has is 1,248 students that are my responsibility in Groton. So that's a bigger number than the 1,000 that we had thought about before. So, and that's just military, active duty. So, you know, beyond that, you have people who are working on submarines at Electric Boat. You have people working at the casinos. So it's a lot to count, but we will count it carefully, believe me.
And so what that means is that, I mean, you can't tell the future, but impact aid seems like it's going to be around next year and then and the year after that, where before we've actually been worried about preparing for what if we dip below that.
Right.
Doesn't seem we're in that trajectory right now.
And you, Kathy, you had mentioned we are a graduate of the Alliance, but one of the things is the bill that they were passing, I wrote testimony talking to them about feeling like the data and the measurements that they were using were kind of just 2 years prior to COVID. And with COVID, I am not so sure. We went from number 33 in the state to 34. So I've talked to Senator Summers and Chris Conley, and they were back and forth when I testified, you know, and I sent in my testimony. But one of the things that I know for sure is that our military children aren't on automatic SNAP forms. Those are done when families need Husky insurance, okay?
Right.
Our families don't need Husky insurance. They have TRICARE. So I don't believe we are accounting for all of our military kids the way we need to be. That's going to affect feeding my kids and also, you know, possibly needing resources from the state, you know, making sure that all of our kids are accounted for. So we are going to really, and I know that I'm going to have help from our legislators and representatives because we've had a conversation. So this is something Mike and I knew about. When we first got the hit from the state, remember, we were so concerned because they were talking about making huge reductions. So I will persevere with that and try to really figure out, you know, what are the needs of our families.
Do any other committee members have questions? Otherwise, I'll turn it back to Representative Chase.
I have one question, and bear with me, I'm new to this, but you had mentioned that you had to hire some staff temporarily to fill in for COVID needs.
Mhm.
Can you just explain that a little more?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
One of the suggestions through ARP-ESSER is for education. So the real premise of this is safety, security, health, social emotional learning, you know, mental health, physical health, and also to really be able to fill the gap and give kids accelerated learning for any learning loss that they might have had. So within that, there was a personnel staffing part. So many of us across the state, almost every district, hired additional tutors who work with small groups of kids. We've hired some extra support, what we call SEL tutors that are people who just have a good background, similar to social work, maybe not the certification. So they've been in our buildings to help support our kids who might have some needs, extra needs, with social emotional learning. You know, we have children who were, let's say they're in second grade now, who've really never been to school. They've been home, they've with parents, maybe with babysitters. And so learning what school's all about has been really hard for them. They usually come in and say, I just want to come here and play, you know? So it's just really getting kids reacclimated. Same thing with high school. You know, they were able to get up what they wanted and tune in and zoom in. And, you know, it was just a different way of life in those 2 years. So the tutors are really essential. We have tutors during the school year. We have tutors before and after school. We have tutors during the summertime, and they really are worth their weight in gold. Many times there are retired teachers and they come back and they've had this calling to come back and help support the kids. Some of them are highly certified reading consultants and math specialists. So I really feel so proud that they've, you know, come back to help us. They really want to retire eventually. So they're okay with doing this for a few years and helping us get back on our feet again.
And how does that affect the proposed budget, I guess?
So in the proposed budget, you know, we have just what we needed prior to COVID in the budget with tutors and staff and that kind of thing. But with the additional funding, we've had these extra folks that will be here with us until 2024.
Okay, I see.
Do any other committee members have questions or comments? I do, but Representative Chase has the floor first, for sure.
Thank you. So maybe this might be a question for Ken. So last year when you were developing the budget, in order to bring it to zero, you took out over $700,000 out of the employee benefits line. And I asked a couple of times if you needed to pay that back, and the answer was no. But this year you're putting back over $418,000. Can you explain why that is?
So when we developed the health insurance line, it's really taking into account the balance in the health insurance reserve, taking into account the amount that is being projected to be collected from employees and the amount of the expected claims. And so last year, you're correct, when we were going through that process, our health insurance reserve was higher than it should be, really. So we made an adjustment to bring that down. And when we did the calculation for this year, yeah, it turned out that there was an increase. A lot of it being driven by an increase in the claim costs. Per our insurance agent, we should expect between a 5 and 10% increase in the same claims year over year. You know, of course, there's a lot of moving parts as folks coming in and going out of the plan. But this amount that we proposed here is to keep the health insurance reserve balance at the correct level.
Okay, I'll ask you the same question I asked last night at the town finance committee. Do you require any teacher that's 65 or older to go on Medicare so it'll save money there?
Well, we do require. Well, teachers are different. They don't actually, they're covered under TRB, the Teachers Retirement Board. But any employee that is eligible, we do require them to sign up for Medicare, yes.
Okay, thank you. The other question is the transportation and tuition. And I know Susan mentioned that tuition is low now because everybody's coming back. So I see there's just a minuscule increase in that out of an $11.7 million budget. It's minuscule, but it increased nevertheless. Can you, with the combining the transportation between the schools, why is there no savings there? Or I know I know that line item encompasses a number of things, but why is there an increase there?
Did you want me to answer, Susan?
Yeah, well, it's based on the contract. So we have a contract that goes up each year with the bus company. We have
Mhm.
one more year, so we have to figure out putting it out to bid and see who will come in, at the best rate for us.
But even with the combining of what we did with the high and middle school, we still need the same number of buses because we have the intra-district magnets. So we've got students in the elementaries that are going, throughout town. We still need those same number of buses. So there was a reduction in buses when we did that change.
Okay, and I know when you answered the question before about the hiring teachers with Art Besser, you said tonight that essentially their employment will end in 24. Is that correct?
Yeah, for most of them, that probably is true. If we have some retirements that come up, we might not lose people because, we really see that there could be potential retirements in the future. So they'll be able to have a place.
Okay, so you wouldn't be hiring more people I don't know if there's ever a year that no one retires. Does that ever happen?
I haven't had one of those years.
Okay, because I was going to say, if no one retires, then
Yeah.
what are you going to do with those temporary teachers?
Well, we will continue to look at scheduling, looking at class sizes. My board does a fabulous job looking at high school numbers, middle school numbers, and when there is an opportunity to, maybe increase, they're very cautious about our class sizes, but if, let's say you have some class sizes of 17 that can go to 20, and you might be able to save an FTE, then we do. And that's what I did with the 4 that we did this year. And I'll keep doing that to watch after that. Having a campus too, Groton Middle School and the high school where you can share some staff is really another sign of efficiency as well.
Okay, thank you.
And Representative Gustafson, I think you have your hand up, so we'll give you the floor.
Yeah, I just had a couple questions. For instructional equipment, looks like there's a 46% increase there. Can you just speak to what that entails?
So that's coming through from our site budgets. So I know that there might be, I think Northeast Academy had some needs with their music equipment, and we had some needs with computer equipment at the STEAM school at Catherine Kolnowski. So they have X amount of dollars to spend, but they can spend it in different ways. We really give the principals the authority to figure out what are their basic needs in their schools. So some might spend a little more on, let's say, some professional learning. Some might spend a little more, especially now that we have these intra-district magnets. We have these wonderful partnerships with NESS and Project O. So we really are personalizing those site budgets. And so the needs of the schools are really taken care of because the principals and their staff are looking at what they do need.
Right, I know I have 2 kids in the system and they were in, strings orchestra.
Mhm.
And I know in the past, there were some issues as far as having enough funds to cover, repairs to their
Right.
instruments. And that's, if we're an arts magnets, school, we should have that ability to, have their instruments repaired and have, enough for
Right.
students to use, and then.
And if you could have heard the strings orchestra play for that strategic deterrent, actually, I had a parent sitting with me at the lunch and he said, it's because of Northeast Academy. My kids picked up strings in 3rd grade and they're
Yeah,
continuing. And he has one that's a senior and they are marvelous. The new band leader music teacher is going to be doing a trip to Hawaii with all the kids and they're going to be performing at Pearl Harbor next year.
Oh.
So woohoo.
Are the parents
So we
invited?
really are
Yeah.
proud of our musicians.
Right.
They do
And
a
then
great job.
one thing that struck me, because, we have the science aspect of it, CK, science supplies dropped by 35%. That's just curious what that's about.
Could you repeat that? I didn't hear you.
It said
It
there
dropped out.
looks like there's a decrease in 35% of science supplies, like.
Well, she's also a title school, so sometimes she will purchase science supplies through Title I funds.
Okay.
And like I said, just adjusting. So I don't think that they're low on science supplies. The school absolutely is one that's a model, and they'll sometimes share with us what they're doing so that we can do it across the district. But it's probably just that she needed something more than that, and she was okay with her science supplies, or she
Okay.
used Title I funds.
All right, thanks.
Do other members have questions? I still have questions about the Alliance District and being an Alliance District graduate. I've listened to the board meetings when that was brought up, and I know it seems like there's still a lot of uncertainty about this.
Right.
But if we graduate, right, if we're no longer in Alliance, I think our funding is probably gonna be held for a couple of years or something. That's my
For 5
understanding.
years, we're held harmless.
Okay, and
Harmless.
so along with that though, once we graduate from Alliance, does that MBR requirement, the fact that we can't go below it, does that go away, or does it go away when the funding goes away? I didn't have a sense of.
The State Department of Education can't answer that question for me. I've asked it. The legislators aren't able to answer that question. So they'll continuously, they really, because of our assessment system, they constantly are looking at all the public schools and looking for growth. So of all of our kids. So they promised me that the reason they're keeping us held harmless for 5 years, if after COVID, we don't make that significant growth that we were expecting, they're going to be reevaluating all the districts within the next 5 years. And they're even talking about making changes. CAPS is very involved with a program that would actually level out things for people and make it so people weren't losing as much funding. There are some districts that have lost a lot of funding, but we are held harmless for 5 years. And I will work with the legislators on that and the State Department of Education.
And that 5 years starts basically this coming budget year.
Right.
So that'd be year one, and you go on from that.
Yep.
So that's actually a longer horizon than most things in
Yeah, I
budgets.
know, but it's still,
Yeah.
it's frightening.
Yep.
Depending on how they do it, so.
And then, so if anyone else had any questions, I think that was my big one. Couldn't tell if that was someone trying to speak or not. I got a little feedback. So I'm going to move another number, and I'm going to move, let me see if I've got it written down. Yes, I'm going to move $79,007,820. So in digits, that's 79,007,820. And I'll ask if there's a second.
What were the last three numbers?
The whole one is 79,007,820.
I'll second it for you, Mike.
All right, thank you. I'll write that down and then I'll speak to it. Okay, so this number is $149,451 less than what the town council approved and what was in the town manager's budget. And that decrease reflects the removal of the added assistant principal that for the two new elementary schools. So currently, Thames River Magnet School and Mystic River Magnet School, they opened up for the first year of having students this year. And right now, this school year, there are a total between the two schools of 3 assistant principals. And in the budget that's been put forward, now there's a total of 4 between the two schools. And so that would mean that each school has 2 assistant principals. And I understand certainly that these are bigger schools. So Thames River and Mystic River Magnet Schools, they're bigger than, say, Northeast Academy by, say, 25% or so, but they're not double it. And so I see that having the need for extra administration is worthwhile. And I think that having that 3 is the right amount. But also philosophically, this was the game plan going in when these schools were opened up. And I know realities change, and you can certainly speak to that. But I feel like after just 1 year going up to adding another administrator, it to me, it feels too quick. And so that's my rationale for the new number. The calculation, I might be off by a couple $100 or something. But what I did was I just saw that I saw that the administrative line items that didn't add a new person, they increased by 2%. And so I just took last year's line item for assistant principals and increased that by 2%. And then the difference is this $149,451. So that's how I came up with the number. There might be different accounting, but that's my quick rationale for it.
Can I speak to that, Mike?
Of course.
So our buildings the capacity is about 600. And you're right, Northeast has probably about 400. But Northeast Academy does not have an entire preschool special ed program, pre-K, TK, and Northeast Academy does not have our ABA specialized program for autism, nor does it have our academy program that hosts children that have serious emotional, needs. So these schools not only have 600 students and they're 4-tier, but they have our most significant special ed needing children. And the requirement that is necessary, we thought there could be one assistant principal with a specialized special ed background to do 2 schools. It's not possible. We actually need one for each school to be able to maintain all the PPTs, IEPs. All of our 0 to 3 children need to go through testing and need to be placed in these preschools. We're trying to put them in the preschool that's closer to them, but when they go into kindergarten, then they go into their home school. Unless they're in these specialized programs, then they stay at Mystic River and Thames River. So it has been really challenging. And I think COVID hasn't helped with some of the social, emotional, and behavioral needs of kids, but these programs will always be this way unless we build a new school for preschool or do something with that. Right now, though, at this point with 600 kids, and it probably with this new lottery, it will probably fill it up to that. And with all of our preschool, pre-K. So we have the special ed children in preschool plus their peers. And then in pre-K, those are children who really need to have a pre-K experience, 4-year-olds who may not have had preschool, who really, we want to give them a jump start. And so we have those programs. So I would say that is one of the most important things in this budget for me, because I feel that if we can service these kids early on and give them just what they need, they're going to be able to thrive better when they get to middle school and high school. So I think it's going to be cost efficient in the long run that we're able to keep these kids in our district instead of sending them out. But it does require, someone with a lot of education and know-how around these specialized programs.
So I have 2 quick follow-ups. One is, are the needs higher than anticipated? I could actually see why they would be in the current climate.
Yeah, we've never had, remember, SB Butler might have had one of the programs, but the other programs have been spread out. And SB Butler was a 2-tier school with, 200 something children. So it was much, you could handle it with a principal and assistant principal because of the sheer number, the small nature of that. So when you think of an SB Butler that handled that program with 2 people, you can kind of understand why you need a third with a school that's twice as big as SB Butler, but with the same program. And SB Butler didn't have, you know, as many preschools and pre-Ks as what we have now in that Mystic River. So it's really important to me. It's important to the principals and probably to the families of those children that have the needs that they have in those buildings.
Did the number of case managers go up? That'd be social workers or school psychologists. Is there more of a need there than you thought?
Well, we had 3 school psychologists, and there is one that splits and she does more of the testing. So we didn't have to add a 4th one of those. It's really for the you know, administration of the building and the care that the special ed department needs in each of the buildings.
And then I suppose those assistant principals, they essentially have to, or an administrator like that has to be in every IEP or PPT
Right.
meeting, right? And then there's clearly.
And then
people with
there's
that.
the evaluation of teachers. And when you have, you know, a 4-tier system, that's double a 2-tier system. You have many more teachers to evaluate, and our principals like to be in those classrooms like every day. So, and they should be. That's where I want them.
Representative Frickman has his hand up for question or a comment.
Yes, thank you. It's just a quick question. Really clarifying. I wasn't sure if you mentioned that is it a requirement that we have to have those 2 administrators in that building? Did you say that was a requirement, or is that just really a need for you?
No, it's a need for the children and the families and the
Right.
teachers.
That's
Yeah.
right. I meant that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
okay, but it's not a requirement that we have to have 2 administrators within that building, one being a specialized administrator, like you just mentioned.
No, we had shared that resource, but it was, you know, it was very challenging. Really very hard to do because of the nature of the disabilities that are in the schools.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I have one. On the same subject, given the number Representative Whitney just proposed, it's up to the board and yourself as to how you spend your money. So it doesn't really matter if, you know, specifically talking, you can still fill that position. You might have to do something somewhere else, right, in the budget. That's pretty much
Right.
the case. Yeah. Right.
Well, I think the board has really scrutinized that, and we, you know, there wasn't another 150,000, you know,
Right.
to be able to move. So they've really done their due diligence with this budget.
And I'll just make a comment, actually gone a long way to explain it for me. I do still have concerns that, you know, we're not getting all these savings that we planned on. But I do see the real need in increased special ed support, not only in our town, but everywhere. Does anyone else have questions or comments? Or actually, I should also say anyone from the board or Groton Public Schools like to make comments at all?
I can't find my hand to raise it, but
You can go then.
I just wanted to support what Susan is saying. Having been a principal, I understand the need for that other assistant principal with a specialized schedule to look at children's specific needs. I can't endorse that enough. It's absolutely essential.
Thank you.
And Chair Watson,
I just-
you're unmuted, so you probably want to say something, I gather.
Oh, I'm not, I don't think I'm muted. It's hard to mute me. No, I just, I actually don't have any comment. I just feel like, Superintendent Austin has just done a really nice job at sort of, explaining the budget that she has put together with her staff, but that the board has scrutinized and kind of gone through. And, trust me, we're not looking at putting people, there just to kind of put people there or to overspend, money. I think we're very clear about how that does. I think that actually Susan actually had to like kind of win the board over about adding that admin piece to the elementary schools. And I do appreciate Kathy's devotion not only to the town in terms of the taxpayer, but also to our school. She has been an advocate for that. And just to assure that when we think about how we're moving forward, when we hire staff, we're not hiring staff with monies to then, oh, our grant is over and we're just going to like sort of absorb them into a budget. We don't have monies to absorb them into. So I think that we're very thoughtful with our grants and with the ESSER, especially because the educational ESSER funds are really clear about sort of getting children back up for achievement, which then requires that personal attention, which requires our tutors. And so the hope is that with this, I mean, I think that's the whole reason for the educational COVID funds, is to really help this district kind of get the tools that we need in order to help these kids kind of get back into routine and get back to the level of functioning that they may have been if we hadn't had a pandemic. You know, Kathy, I know that you attend a lot of our meetings, and one of the things that the board has been very specific in doing in the past several years is to make sure that we have the social work support in all of our schools. And if nothing else, then the past 2 years, the mental health needs, which were always present, has really been exacerbated because of the pandemic. And so our ESSER funds are going to pay. I can't tell you, I can't remember, I can barely remember my name, Kathy. I know that they are paying for some of those positions. And maybe some of those positions are going to be, once our ESSER funds are gone, they will be gone. But that also we have found ways and places where we always will have funding for those mental health pieces, so that not only is it operational budget, but it's also grant funded for Title I.
Title I. Mhm.
So I just want to make sure that that I really feel that with thoughtful conversations with a lot of people, when we do grants or when we receive money and we're going to add staff, we need to talk about, well, what are we going to do when that grant is gone? And what are we going to do and how are we going to make that sustainable?
I also would like to add that in the DODEA grants, the Department of Defense Education Activity, and in the Magnet School Assistance Program, that is part of the planning phase. So we have to actually figure out what we are going to do in order to sustain the mission of the grant, but not have those fees at the end. So we actually have to write that up in our proposal for the grants, and they really would deny you if you haven't come up with that plan. So we've been really successful in doing that, and we've had a lot of practice in how to do that, and we've gotten creative. So that's part of the process that you go through.
Mike, I do have another question.
Okay, go ahead.
So the ARP ESSER funds are not incorporated into the $79 million budget, is it?
You are
That's
correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's kind of like just an aside. So I was just, because I work with grants, as you know, so I was just saying that as an aside, that it's really dangerous to hire staff with temporary money.
Right.
So,
We understand that for
okay.
sure.
I know you do. Thank you.
Yeah. We call it the cliff.
All right, do we have any other questions or comments? If not, we can, I'll call the vote on the second amended number. But if you have any questions or comments, you can speak up now and we'll listen. All right. So I'm calling a vote on the second amended number. And that number is $79,007,820. And that was moved by me and seconded by Representative Chase. So I'm going to do roll call vote. It'll be me last. But actually, before I do that, just want to know, Representative Junipero, I wonder if I'm getting your names pronounced right or not.
It's Junipero, but you're
Junipero.
close, so
Okay,
no worries.
I have a closer next time. We have to do this probably 3 times, so, or 2 or 3 times. So make sure I get it right. Actually, many times.
Thanks.
Okay, so we're voting on the second amended number, and that's $79,007,820. And Representative Chase, how do you vote?
No,
Representative Frickerman, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Junipero?
No.
Representative Gustafson?
No,
Representative Whitney? I'm a no. That fails. And that was 1 in favor and then 4 opposed. And so now the number, I don't know who motioned that first one, that one there. Now we're on the next one, and this is the first amended number, and it is $77,438,090. And we can, now that we're back to that number, you can ask more questions, have more discussions, make endorsements or anything. It's up to you. We don't have to go straight to the vote, is what I'm saying. No questions or comments? I'll just make a quick one for my part. Well, I definitely understand the threat and fear of raised taxes. I have seen what other schools have put forward in their budgets and had approved, and it's actually a much bigger increase percent-wise than this is. So than what's proposed. So I will not be supporting a 0% increase. I will not be supporting this first amended number. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? All right, so we'll do this by roll call too. I'm calling a vote on the first amended number. It's $77,438,090. That was moved by Representative Chase and seconded by Representative Junipero. And Representative Chase, how do you vote?
yes,
Representative Frickman,
No.
Representative Junipero? I don't know if I heard that. Representative Junipero, how do you vote on this number?
I'm sorry. No.
Okay. Representative Gustafson
no,
and Representative Whitney? No. And so that also fails. That's 1 yes and 4 no's. And now we're on to currently the original number, and that is $79,157,271. And just like before, we can continue after discussion. We don't need to go straight to a vote. So I was wondering if anyone had any further questions, comments, or discussion.
I have oh, sorry, I forgot to raise my hand.
No, it's fine. You did verbally.
Sorry, I spaced out for a second. I just had a quick question regarding the actual staffing, and I guess I missed it in a quick look through the budget. But are we saving staffing numbers this year, like through like either layoffs or cuts or retirees? Are we actually
Yes.
going to decrease? How many people are we decreasing by?
We reduced 4.0 FTEs, mostly at the high school, and that was a scheduling issue that we were able to compact the schedule. We've adjusted severance and pensions, health insurance recalculations. We actually got a bill from the town that increased our liability insurance in our new buildings, that was a plus. But we've really tried to look at reductions like in the district magnet tuitions and also in out-of-district placement. So there were some cost efficiencies as we rolled through. It started at 3.4%, which was really based on all of our contracts for benefits and salaries. So just out of the gate, without any other increases. That's what it was, but the board went through it item by item, line by line. And they were able to make reductions in, looks like about 8 different areas, but including 4.0 FTEs.
Now, what percent of people who are on HSAs at this point? Is everybody on it at this point?
We all are.
Everybody is, okay. I didn't know if there was any
No.
holdovers left. Okay, all right.
Nope.
All
We've
right.
gotten through a whole cycle of contracts.
Okay. And
Yeah.
has the board looked at the possibility of going with the state? Would there be more savings if they negotiated with the state for health insurance? 'Cause I know some districts have actually gone to provide health, insurance to the state at this point, but
We've actually scrutinized that and we are doing better with our HSA.
Oh, okay, I figured that, some it's the same number you save.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Chase?
I'm going to follow up on Representative Frickman's question. So he's asking for next year on the reduction of staff. How much staff has been reduced with the consolidation of all the schools? Do you have that number?
I don't have that number on the top of my head. I'd have to go back and look, really, it goes back to when Mike and I were here, we had Pleasant Valley in addition to, and so we reduced that school, probably back in 2016. And then we've closed SB Butler and Claude Chester, given them back to the town. We've held on to Mary Morrison. And I think my robotics team is going in there, but we're going to keep it, clean and nice and able to maybe do some STEM activities for kids. But in case we needed to open up a building with this Columbia class submarine and all these students coming in, we have that extra building.
So when you closed Claude Chester and Pleasant Valley, where did those teachers go? Did they go to other districts somewhere or?
So yes, there's been these cost efficiencies all the way along. We've been able to reduce staff all the way along, and they're I'm sure it's a accounting kind of situation, but we could look at what the number of staff were back when we had Pleasant Valley. I understand there were actually 10 elementary schools.
Yes.
Before I got here, and
Yeah.
we're down to 5.
Yeah. So I'd just like to know what the reduction is from
Yeah,
when we
that's a
were
good
at
question.
full,
I'm
full
kind of
bore.
curious too. Yeah,
Yeah, when we were at full bore with all the schools and now we're down to however many, I forget how many.
and not just teachers, paraprofessionals come with the students for IEPs, but that would be interesting to look at the para number and the secretaries and the custodians too.
Yes. Would you be able to get that number before this budget goes before the RTM?
That's a question for Ken. He's pretty good at his graphs and charts. We could work on that. Tell me
Yeah.
again the date when it goes before the full RTM. Do you
Yep,
have that
I do.
date?
I do, let me see. Possibly. I'll find it for you before we leave tonight. I have
Okay.
it here somewhere.
Is it towards the end of the month of May?
Actually, I have it here.
I had
It's
called
May
over to
May
find-
11th, May 11th.
Okay,
Yeah, it's May 11th at 7 o'clock.
okay. We'll see, what we can do. We can certainly figure out the teachers, but we can look to see what other staff too.
I appreciate that, thank you.
I have a follow-up question on the insurance, the health insurance options. Representative Frickman's question jogged my memory. It's earlier in the season when Lime Old Lime passed their budget and there's a decrease. Whoa, how'd they get a decrease? And their decrease was because they switched to, and I've got it here, the Eastern Connecticut Health and Medical Collaborative. And the description here says it's a pool of schools made up with Learn, and also currently at that point it was North Stonington, Old Saybrook. Is that seems like it's a third option? And my question is that something we could get into, and for next year, is that something to look into exploring too, for possible savings?
We can certainly explore that to see, Mike, if that is something that is more affordable. I know the HSA, you know, has really been a very good option for us, but, you know, we can take a look at it.
Thank you. And it might be a question of size, because those,
Right.
those schools districts are pooling together to bridge into something that's a large district, and ours already, at least for
Right.
this area, already is. So thank you. Representative Frickman, you have your hand up now. I don't know if that's just for making up for last time.
No, that's right. Thanks. I just had a follow-up actually to the earlier question about the staffing numbers. Is there a way that they can break those down so we can see the differentiate between how many teachers versus how many paras versus how many custodians that have been, you know, we have been able to save over since the consolidation? Instead of having just one number of staff altogether, could we break it down?
That's what we were saying we're going to try to do.
Okay, that'd be great.
And
Because
I got a text from Lori Lapine, and that has actually been, we've explored both the state and the other one through Learn. So that was something we did look at. I think because they're smaller districts, it was a savings for them.
And I just promoted her to panelist. I'd forgotten to do that. I'm sorry about
That's
that.
right. I'm sorry, Mr. Frickman. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh no, you didn't. No, it's fine. I was just saying because I know the public view and regarding we've consolidated schools, and I know from a conversation with a lot of people in the public, they want to see those, that we've made those savings by consolidating. And I think some people feel that we haven't, you know, so it's like, and I think the message needs to get out there that if we have, what is it? How are we saved?
Right.
So that'd be great if we could see that. Thank you.
All right, any other questions, comments before we move to vote on this number? You can also move another number. It's fine too. Yep.
I have one more. I keep saying one more. When you negotiate contracts for teachers' salaries and whoever else's salaries, do you keep that in mind about, you know, the taxpayers that have to pay those salaries? I'm sure you do, but I really need to get that out there into the public because, you know, most companies have caps on their salaries. Do you have caps at all on your salaries? Or can they just go up and up and up?
Well, we usually know the kind of monies that we're going to have to be looking at. We look at, the lawyers do a really due diligent job about looking at local regions and really fielding what's happening out there, you know, economically and in other districts like our own, other local districts. So there's a lot of work, and we actually usually have a town councilor on a negotiation team for something as large as, you know, the administration or the teacher, you know, especially for them. So, and because they're our largest population, they sometimes will, you know, people look to them as what their benefits are. Doesn't mean that they're all equal, you know, they all, you know, are negotiated separately. But I think the teachers were the first, or maybe the administrators were the first for an HSA, and then it rolled out so that all unions took that on, and non-union.
So are there caps on the salaries at all?
I wouldn't say there's a cap, but there's amounts of money that we know that we have to work with.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Sorry, Mike.
Oh, you've got one? Yep.
Sorry, I have one follow-up more question. My apologies. So actually, I was just, do we know the number of savings from moving to the regular insurance to the HSA? Do we have that number of what we saved?
I'm sure we could get that. Lori's not on here. She's really my expert when it comes to the insurances. Was she moved to panelist?
I believe she declined panelists, which is
Okay,
her right to do
Right.
so. I can move her up again.
I mean, if we can't get it tonight, it's awesome. It's, you
yeah,
know,
that wouldn't be something at the top of my head. Some
Yeah,
numbers are, but that's
right.
not one.
Oh, she's in panelist now, so.
Hi, Lori. We're talking about insurance and when we move to the HSA and the cost savings that were around that and
Sure,
continue
sure.
to be around that.
I'm sure that we have that information. We'll have to just go back to the office and pull it out, but I couldn't certainly speak to it right off the top of my
Right,
head. I'm
right.
sure we have it.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then they're also looking to see, you know, when we started closing the schools like Pleasant Valley and then the last three, and opening up the new schools. You know, what were some of those positions that were saved and, you know, the efficiencies, even with CIPs, when you think about it, when you're not putting new roofs because you've got brand new schools and you're hoping they last 60 to 100 years too, you know?
All right, any other, actually, Chair Watson, I was wondering if you had, you'd had your hand up before, maybe.
I'm good.
Okay,
I'm good. Thank you.
all right, there are no other, one more questions or comments that we've had many of from all of us. We can move on to the vote. And so what we're voting on is the original motion, and that is $79,157,271. That was moved by Representative Gustafson, and it was seconded by Representative Whitney. And we'll do a roll call vote again. Representative Chase,
No,
Representative Frickman,
Yes.
Representative Junipero,
No.
Representative Gustafson,
Yes.
Representative Whitney is a yes. That is 3 in favor, 2 opposed. That number passes. All right. So now we're on to the next account. I don't dare take an official recess because we probably never get the recording going again. But if you want to stretch your legs or something, we can hang out here for a moment. But I will find, we're moving on to the CIPs. And so let me just get up the agenda so I read the right CIP at the right time.
I'm looking at pages 226, 227, 228, and 229.
Thank you. Yes, yes. So the next on our agenda is it's CIP 5 education, and it's 5A, Fitch High School athletic facilities. And that's on page 226 of the town budget book. And before moving a number, I just want to say that let me make sure I get this right. The town council approved $0 for this. And the town manager's budget had this at, and check me on this one, had this at 244,000.
That's correct.
And so those are our bounds for the motion, anywhere between 0 and 244,000. It's tradition actually to start with the latest approved number, which would be the town council number of 0, but it's a recommendation, so you're free to move whatever you want to.
I'll move $0.
All right, that's moved, that's $0. And I think that's seconded by Representative Frickman.
Yes.
Okay. And would you like to speak to your motion, Representative Chase?
Yes, they have a sports field task force that's been looking into all sports fields around the town and where we can put more and how we can fix up and things like that. And they're creating a master plan for this. So to put $244,000 into the field now and possibly dig it up later to do something else with it is, in my mind, a waste of money. If they could just wait a little longer to see what the master plan works out to be, you know, who knows, maybe they'll get a better and bigger field there. So that's why I'm saying $0, because it's throwing good money after bad basically at this point.
All right, does anyone actually, do you have any questions or does anyone else have any questions or comments on this?
I just, oh, sorry.
Oh, it's
Go,
just
Yeah,
to
Representative.
that's what Representative Chase just talked about. Is that the case? Like, say that we did improve, you know, do this, would it in fact, I don't know if anybody in this meeting would know, would they actually in fact, like say they want to do a different field, would they dig it up and, you know, go ahead and, you know, put some of the kind of surface on or whatever? Does anybody have?
I've been hearing they've talked about a turf field, which is quite expensive, but I just want you to know that I've been working closely with Grosso Tech. We've actually shared, you know, some of their kids are on our robotics team, our bands have gotten together. It's really this wonderful synergy. Our kids are going to be free of charge, able to take broadcasting and digital media after school at Grosso and get credit. So I'm just thrilled about this partnership. And one of the things we've already started doing is sharing our fields.
Right.
So we are a campus on the hill with these 3 schools. They have got a beautiful football field. So there has been some talk between the principals about possibly utilizing. So if we didn't have to build a turf field down the road, that would be an awesome thing. And we could have a you know, this manicured grass field that would take this kind of money, 244,000 on the Fitch side, and then a turf field at Grosso, and we could actually share those fields. So that's just something to think about for the future. If there are efficiencies like that, because Grosso is a state school and it comes from state money. And of course, our work comes from our own local Groton, you know, townspeople. So
Yeah, I've seen Grasso's field, looks really nice. I'm personally
It
not
does.
a fan of turf. I prefer grass, but that's irrelevant here. But yeah,
So,
like,
but I think that's what they were talking about. So I really, you know, I'm seeing that in the future, if we could have this really well done grass field, and it would be safer. I mean, I don't know how many more years we can hang on without, you know, having this kind of work done for safety issues, but I certainly understand your point.
Thanks.
Representative Frickman?
Yeah, I actually want to just back up what Representative Chase said. I totally agree. I'd rather wait and wait for the master plan to come out. Hopefully we get a better field after that. Hopefully, sorry, Representative Gustafson. Hopefully we get a turf field, but I'd rather wait and save that money until that time comes.
All right, Chair Watson, you have your hand up.
Thank you. I'm just wondering if either Susan or Sam could speak to why we have we put this on the CIP. Like, what was the importance for us to have that done this year, knowing that we had a master plan, a plan for the fields, and I was just wondering if we could if someone could speak to that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Actually, we've had this in for the last 3 or 4 years on the CIP list. The field, the door field at Fitch High School is the crown has lost its effectiveness on the field, and it doesn't drain as well as it did. And there are some safety concerns with that. So that's why it's been on the list for the last 3 or 4 years. And to answer the question about whether they would dig that up, from what I heard, if they were to do a turf field, artificial turf field. There were two iterations of that. One would be to do it right where the field is now. It would increase the size of, or it would expand the track to a slightly different shape and be replaced in that same direction. And the alternative would be to turn it 90 degrees and go in the other direction. So those things are up in the air right now with that field committee, but they would dig it up to do the, along with the track to redo a field, artificial field.
So I actually have I'm conflicted on this because it's a multifaceted issue. So I guess I'll just break it down bit by bit. My first question is, currently we call this the football field, and it sure seems like that's all that actually, well, the only sport that actually uses the field. And I was just wondering, is that my is that a correct interpretation?
No, actually the field is used by gym classes, also used for some lacrosse games, although some will now be played on the artificial field at the middle school, but they do play some lacrosse games down there on the football field as well. And of course, track and field also use the field during the track season.
So for lacrosse, have this year, now that we have the new middle
They
school,
haven't done it yet, but because of the lights, for instance, they play a couple of what they term important games toward the end of the year on the football field, so they can play under the lights.
Okay, so that's lacrosse, and is that boys and girls, just boys?
Yeah, they will both. Generally speaking, both teams will get 2 games on that field before the end of the season. I haven't seen the schedule this year, but that's generally what they've done in the past.
And then for track, I wouldn't think they'd be throwing javelin in the middle of the field. I know shot put's off somewhere else. I don't know if discus has got to be somewhere else too. So
Well,
what do they do in the
there is
middle?
a practice football. There is a practice field on the other end where the discus and the shot put are thrown, but the javelin is thrown on that on the football field.
Yikes. That'd make me run faster. Okay, thanks. Because actually that is my concern. We call it the football field, right? And football is and has been a predominantly male sport. And so, and I know funding for football by nature is quite expensive, and just the gender equity in that, I don't favor. It's better if both gender teams can be using this, and if it's just for football or predominantly so, I've got an issue with investing funds for that. But so if track is using it a bit and lacrosse a little bit too, that helps kind of ameliorate that issue. My other question, this is on the other side actually, is so we have this athletic fields task force, and they have not produced a report, and that means it has not gone to the town council. And my understanding of the process of this is it's very, very likely that this would then go to essentially a referendum, because we'd be voting on bonded funding, much like we did for the schools project. And to me, I don't see us. I'm just guessing. I don't see us voting on that by this time next year. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but I don't have any timeline for that. And then between funding, and then I know watching all the CIPs that you approve a CIP, and then there's the planning phase, and then something else happens. It looks like nothing's happening, and then all of a sudden, a couple of years down the line, boom, it's there. But that couple of years down the line here feels to me like it's 3 or 4, 4 or 5, and this CIP has already been on for 3 or 4. So when we're asking to wait until the task force comes up with something, I think we're really kind of asking to wait another 3 or 4 years to change anything. And so my question is, do you have a sense of the timeline of this alternate route that would happen with the task force and probably the turf field?
Well, Jay Whiteloff has been on the committee. I don't know, Jay, if you have any more ideas, because you've kind of been paying attention to that.
Yes, so basically everything's at a standstill with the athletic field task force at this time because the town council needs to make a decision about the use of the Claude Chester property. So, I mean, this really is a very long-term project, as Mike intimated. I mean, because we have to make a decision about Claude Chester, then athletic fields needs to come up with a master plan. And as Mike indicated, this will not be funded through a budget. It's going to require a referendum and bonding. And I understand there's questions about whether we're already at our bonding limit. So this is not going to happen soon, in my humble opinion. And I actually believe, I may slightly disagree with Sam. We've been asking for the money to recrown the field since I joined the board. I think it's been 5 years or more. So.
I do worry about the safety issue as well. And there is some synergy and efficiency if we can, you know, be able to share fields with Grasso and use their turf field for certain game highlights, you know? I don't know. It's just, I put that out there as, you know, something that we could consider down the road.
I got a question. So looking at the breakdown of the proposed funds, most of it's to sod and recrown. That's the 215,000. And then the other part is $28,750 for irrigation. My question is, could you do the irrigation first and see what happens with everything else, or would that not make sense because then you'd have to rip up the irrigation if you were going to resod the field? So my question is, could you pick it apart and only irrigate? Would there be any value to that?
That would be throwing good money away again, because yeah, you would definitely tear up the irrigation system again in order to do something at a later date. Everything would be set by elevation, and with the field needing the recrowning, that needs to be raised quite a bit in the middle of field presently. And so the irrigation would definitely be torn up and reset.
Thank you. And along with that, I already figured this one out, that you wouldn't want to sod and recrown and not put in irrigation, because you know you'd have something that looks good for you know, maybe half a season, and that half season would be in the summer. My other question, actually, I guess a point, when we approved the CIP to rebuild the tennis courts, one of the reasons that the tennis courts had gotten so bad was not just that it was cracked, it was actually the whole tennis courts were sort of slumping. Is that what's happening over the football field too, or is it just beaten down over time?
I haven't been able to find anywhere in any records that I've gone through to find out when the last time the football field was recrowned. So I think it's just a matter of many, many years of not having been upgraded.
I've been monopolizing the time. Representative Chase, you've got your hand up.
Thank you. So I know that the town council, during their budget deliberations, they went round and round with this. And like Jay said, that this has been going on for 5 years. And I really think we should wait. I mean, if it was 50,000, maybe I'd think about it, but 244,000 is a lot of money. And we don't know what the task force is going to come up with for these fields. So that's my rationale for the zero. I mean, it's just a lot of money. And again, 7.51% increase for taxpayers this year alone. It's just going to be too much. And to just waste money in the long run is not prudent. So.
Thank you. Does anyone, I've got another question or comment, but does anyone else have one before me? All right, so my question is, we've got this for fiscal year 2023. if this were approved, when would the work be done? My guess is it would be after the school year, basically the summer of 2023, but is that correct? Or-
Well, the best time to sod a field is actually in the fall, so it would be done in the fall of whatever year we were able to do it. And so that it would be ready for the following year. And if that were to take place, of course, the football team would have to play all the away games in that particular season. But if the
Or
bids
use
could
the
get-
Grasso field.
So if the bids could get out in time and got received back in time, we would do it in the fall of the year approved.
So if we're looking at this current budget, so if it were approved, you try and get those bids out and get it done. Basically this coming fall is what you're saying.
Yeah, I'd have to work with the athletic director. I don't know where he is regarding the schedule for this fall already, so. But yeah, I'd have to work with him.
Would it still be, I mean, we'd be approving these funds. I know CIPs take a while to twilight out. If you say you've got a certain, I forget what it is, 5-year window.
5 years, yeah.
Would it make sense then not to, like, we could approve these funds, for instance, not go out to bid this summer? Timeline would be tight anyway for the athletic schedule. And then in the meantime, the task force comes up, but maybe that's the same thing as waiting a year budget wise too. I don't know.
Yeah, I know that in the past, there were some town councilors that were concerned about approving money and then not doing anything with the money. But if it were an understanding on your part that we have 1 year to explore this and wait for an answer from the Fields Committee, and then be prepared along with the athletic director for a schedule for the following year, that might make sense to me.
I think that would be overstepping our charge, even as a committee or the RTM probably. So, but that would be up to you, but just I was wondering about it. My other question is, it's going to be recrowned and of course relined. It's going to be relined as just a football field or multi-purpose? And would other fall sports be able to use it?
It would be lined as a football field, but then when the lacrosse teams play on it, we line it for lacrosse at that time. So those lines don't remain on permanently, but the football field lines are pretty much intact throughout the year because the band also practices on those lines, so they're pretty well imprinted over the years.
That's a good point about the band using the field as well. They're kind of an all-star band. Not kind of, they really are. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Let's see. I'm going to move another number, and I'm going to move 244,000, and this is for CIP 5A Fitch High School facilities. Is there a second? Oh, I have no second yet, so that number will not. Okay, so we are still with the 0. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? All right, we can move to a roll call vote. This is for CIP 5A Fitch High School facilities and in the amount of $0. That was moved by Representative Chase and seconded by Representative Frickman. And I'll do the roll call vote again in hopefully alphabetical order. Representative Chase.
Yes.
Representative Frickman.
All right, yes.
Representative Junipero.
Yes.
Representative Gustafson.
Yes.
And Representative Whitney is a no. And so that passes at 4 in favor, 1 opposed. All right, now we're on to the next CIP. And that is CIP 5B. Charles Barnum Elementary School roof replacement. And the amount, both in the town manager's budget and approved by the council, is $1 million. And so we can go between 0 and $1 million. I'm just going to verify that. Yes, indeed, the town council did approve it at $1 million. So if anyone would like to move any number between 0 and $1 million.
I will move $1 million for CIP 5B.
Any
I'll second.
seconds? Was that Representative Gustafson, I think?
Yeah.
You can speak to your motion if you like.
Well, gotta upkeep the buildings, right? Keep them up. Can't let them fall down. And, you know, if you leave a roof in disrepair, you're gonna have bigger problems down the line. So if this school is gonna remain open, as it says in the narrative, which I assume it would be, is that correct, Susan? For a long
Yes.
length of
Yes,
time,
I mean, at this point, you're right.
gotta keep it up. So,
Does anyone have any questions or comments? My question actually is just, do you know when Charles Barnum was open? And then is there a horizon for it? I mean, are we, is the roof going to outlive when we're expecting to use this this school?
Well, we definitely need this school. Like I said, our numbers are growing and it is our military, school. So it's one of our 5 intra-district magnets.
How old is it? When was it built?
1964, I believe it was built.
Mid-60s, yes.
Thank you. For me, we've got all these new elementary schools, save for one, and it's the one that serves the military community the most. I mean, all of our schools do.
Right.
I would think I'm in favor of the roof, but also I'd like to see within 20 years that there's a new school there, because they do have advantages, clear advantages, as we've seen. And so I'd like some planning that way, so that basically all the students in the town have the same advantages, really. And I know it's a wonderful school, of course.
It is.
But the school building can help it be even better, I think. But so would a non-leaky roof.
We had that problem with SV Butler, remember, and it gets worse before it gets better. So, and that's, because we've been able to close that school, and open the new one, we don't have to worry about that CIP.
Right. Representative Frickman, you have your hand up?
Yeah, thank you. So my question was, regarding the roof, is it a necessity right now to replace, so of the $1 million, is that a complete redo of the roof? Or is the issue a smaller issue that we can maintain for a smaller price at the moment? Or does it have to be all redone at one time?
So there is a reimbursement factor, and we're even entertaining solar panels, possibility. So I don't know, Sam, you can speak to that would be probably the most it would cost, but we're hoping that we would be able to get a reimbursement, right?
Yeah, the roof is long beyond its 20-year life expectancy. And we've been doing spot repairs for many years there. So it is due for a replacement. So when they replace it, they replace the entire roof. They add insulation under the new roof so that it's no longer at certain pitches, add drainage to the roof. So it's no longer called a flat roof anymore. They have to have a certain pitch on the roof. And the solar panels issue is something that we're exploring, because now we've been told, although I haven't seen it officially yet, that the state will reimburse you for solar. So if we were to do it, we'd take a look at solar at the same time on that roof.
So, okay, so that was my follow-up. If we're doing the solar, wouldn't we wait and do both at the same time? That way, because if we put a brand new roof in and then all of a sudden we put solar in, wouldn't that compromise the roof?
It would be done at the same time, but for instance, the two solar projects that we're doing now are that we're planning to do at the middle school and the Mystic River School are going to be ballast systems. In other words, weight is going to hold them down. They're not going to be attaching the systems to the roof. The only penetrations in the roof will be where the actual lines, electrical lines go through the roof. So minimum drilling in the roof. So we would do the same thing at Charles Barnum or any other roof that we're going to put solar on. We'd stick with the ballast systems as long as they can do that engineering wise.
And
Do you have
Sam,
like
what
a-
was the, I'm sorry, what was the number of reimbursement for a roof from the state?
We're in the 50% range, and it changes each year. So until I actually submitted it, I wouldn't know the exact number, but we've been anywhere between 48 and 56% since I've been here.
So the idea is that we would have to pay the full $1 million, but then the town would get reimbursed 50% possibly?
That's correct.
Okay.
And the full amount has to be approved by the town council as well.
Right,
And the
right.
board.
So that answered one of my questions. Thank you. The other one was, what is the timeline on that?
I've actually already talked to the architect about that. He's fully aware that there's a possibility that this would be approved. And if so, that he would get going on his plans relatively soon. While it's preferable to do it during the summer, it probably wouldn't be done this summer. A roof like that can actually be done during school hours, but we try and do it in off times for sure.
All right, thank you.
Representative Chase.
Thank you. So just to clarify, so the $1 million includes the new roof, a pitched roof, you said, and solar panels. And if, no, what does it, it's just the roof is the $1 million?
Yeah, it's just the roof. This the solar addition has been something that just come up recently. So I haven't even seen officially with the state, but it's something that we're talking to them about. But the $1 million was the estimate for the roof itself.
So, but the state will reimburse 50%-ish of that $1 million for the roof. But then you said something about, will we get reimbursement for the solar panels too, if that's put up?
That's what we're told, although as I said, I haven't seen it officially from the state, but I was told by somebody at the state that the OSCGR, the grant department at the state, is approving solar projects as part of roof projects.
So you have to do them in conjunction, together at the same time. Like you can't do the roof this year and then get the solar panels a year from now.
Well, the solar projects that we're doing at the two new schools are not eligible for reimbursement, so I would say that that would be accurate.
They're not eligible for reimbursement? Why is
So,
that?
Not as part of that project.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you.
But those we aren't paying for. We're in an agreement where we're going to be purchasing the electricity at a lesser rate, right? But we're not paying for the solar panels.
That's correct.
Right, the company puts them on, they put them on and they get a little reimbursed, they make some money off the electricity, right? So that's, got it.
They get the credits and something off the electric, yes.
And we're just talking about Charles Barnum for that right now. We're not talking about
Exactly.
the two new schools, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so I know this is off topic, but you can never put solar panels on the two new elementary schools?
I feel like there's so many conversations going on that now we're confused.
Right, I do
Oh,
too.
I'm trying to figure out what's getting, all right, forget about the new schools. We're just talking about Charles Barnum. I retract that question.
Sorry, Mike.
No, it's fine. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? All right, if not, we can call the vote on this. So this is for CIP 5B, Charles Barnum Elementary School roof replacement for the amount of $1 million. That was moved by Representative Chase and seconded by Representative Gustafson. And I'll go for a roll call vote again. Representative Chase,
Yes.
Representative Frickman,
Yes.
Representative Junipero,
Yes.
Representative Gustafson,
Yes.
and Representative Whitney. Yes, that passes 5 in favor. No one opposed. All right. So I'll just say right now, our next one is 5D. There is no 5C. I rewound and fast forwarded on the town council one for a little bit on that. But so we have just done 5B. Now we're doing 5D, Fitch High School and Barnum Schools HVAC upgrades. And for information, what was requested in the town manager's budget, forwarded from the Board of Education, was $50,000 for this budget cycle. And what was approved by town council was $0. So we can have motions from the town council number 0, which would be the traditional starting point, on up to $50,000. Would
Can
anyone
I
like?
just put a little explanation in here that might help you all?
Actually, we'll move a number
Okay.
and then we'll
All
discuss,
right.
because I think it will
Okay.
happen naturally.
Mike, I'll move the 0 number from the town council.
All right,
Second.
okay. And would you like to speak to your motion, Representative Frickman?
Actually, I just had a question regarding it. From what I understood, since it's HVAC, couldn't we have used COVID funds to cover some of that?
That's exactly right. That was what I
Okay.
was going to explain. We do have a section of the ARP ESSER for HVAC, and the study is really essential. Before we do any work, we need to know what we need to do. So I can take care of that and get the study rolling so we know what needs to happen. And then I have other funds. We already actually took care of 2 HVACs that are getting in place at Fitch through the ARP ESSER, but the study will help me understand what other Fitch needs and Charles Barnum needs. So I'm happy to take care of that so I can get that job going.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Does anyone else have questions or comments?
I just have a quick for clarification. Did the superintendent just say that she's going to take care of this CIP with ARPA funds? Is that the case?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's in my plan to take close to $1 million for ARP ESSER. We've already spent some of it on Fitch High School for systems that in both the newer wing and the older wing will be replaced. So this study is really essential to find out what other things that we need to do. So I can do that. It's in my, it can be part of my HVAC ARP ESSER.
Okay.
And this went through as a CIP because that's the traditional
Right,
route to fund
that's,
such
yeah,
project.
before, right.
Does anyone else have questions or comments?
I have
yeah.
a comment.
Yeah.
I just want to say, Susan, I appreciate you and all your staff and the board for looking for other funding when you can for all of everything. I know it may not sound that way when I say I want 0 funding for whatever or MBR, but I do appreciate all that you do.
Thank you.
And I'd also like to say I appreciate that in a timely way, we've decided how to spend out ARP ESSER funds for the good of the school system and the town as a whole. And I wish we were more timely with the ARPA funds on the town side before we got into this budget cycle, but that's a great for another meeting. So does anyone else have any other comments or questions? All right, I'll call a vote, and this is for CIP 5D, Fitch High School and Barnum Schools HVAC upgrades for the amount of $0. That was moved by Representative Frickman and seconded by Representative Chase. And we'll do the roll call vote again here too. Representative Chase,
Yes.
Representative Frickman,
Yes.
Representative Junipero,
Yes.
Representative Gustafson,
Yes.
and Representative Whitney. Yes. So that passes 5 in favor, 0 opposed. All right. We are moving on to our last one, which means I have to find the page, my double-sided pages here. Oh yeah, I got it. This is CIP 5E, Fitch High School Culinary Arts. And the amount in the town manager's budget, which was passed on from the Board of Education for fiscal year 2023, was $70,000, and the town council approved $0 for this budget item. So the tradition would be for the first motion to be what the town council approved, which is at $0, but we can entertain motions between $0 and $70,000. So anyone like to move a number?
I'll move the number for 5E, $0.
Second.
All right, got it. So would you like to speak to the motion?
Well, I don't know anything about how you get into Grasso, but I know they have a great culinary arts program there. And as I said previously, you know, we're spending a lot of money paying for the schools, and we just need to take a little break from that and put a little money into the rest of the town.
Does anyone else like to speak to this or questions?
Oh, yeah, can I ask the superintendent her thoughts on this issue here?
Absolutely. I think I shared with you that at Grasso, our kids can actually take a broadcasting digital media class after school. But we really couldn't send all of our Fitch High School kids to Grasso to take culinary arts, or even the ones that want to take it. It's a very popular career pathway. And being in Southeastern Connecticut, it's a very viable career pathway for so many of our children. We have what looks like an old home ec room, and there are a lot of problems with it: broken ovens, stoves. We actually, through a Perkins grant, have just purchased some new stoves. But what we really need to have happen in there is to have a study done. Just like I said, how important the study was for HVAC, but our Besser won't cover this study. And it is really important to see how we can take that space, which was a double classroom with kind of a funny closet in between, to enhance it, to make it more upgraded. These ovens that we're purchasing are more kind of state-of-the-art ovens that would be found in a, a restaurant. So that space needs to look more like restaurant than home ec, because, this is kind of the 21st century skills. And, a lot of our kids will want to have certification, so we can get them certified in culinary, certified in nursing. So those career pathways are so important to our kids to be college and career ready. So I would say this is really a high priority for me to get the study done, so that we really do the right planning for this space, and we're able to utilize it. We have to turn over hundreds of kids away from this program because there's not enough room. It's not efficient. I think he has one stove working, but I took care of the stoves with Perkins money. But now we have to make sure that we have a plan for the space and do this appropriately. I know Sam is working with fire marshals and, people looking at the electricity capability that's in that space. Because when you upgrade something from, home ec days to culinary arts and, business kind of, culinary, it does take some work. And I just want to know what needs to be done. And that's why the plan is so essential.
Representative Whitney, can I move a number?
Of course.
I'd like to move 70,000.
Any seconds? I'll second that. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, I think kind of what the superintendent said. Obviously, we do have some synergy with, Grasso Tech, but I can see why it would be unreasonable to expect, it sounds like there's a large number of students that they would be able to, kind of merge in with the Grasso Tech students in their classroom because, the sheer class size of, the number of students in Fitch and Grasso, I'm sure would exceed, their capabilities. And given our region, and also I think the $70,000 number, even cutting it would be pretty negligible as far as, affecting taxes. So I'm kind of for it. I think, not everybody can go to Grasso Tech or not everybody may apply to them, but if they want to pursue this career field, I think we should provide an opportunity. I think it just makes sense.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Representative Chase?
Thank you. So why do you turn students away from this program?
There's just this space capabilities. I think it was made as a home ec room and the ovens aren't working. There's a lot of things wrong with it, but there's not enough space for them, stations for them. So like we have to limit the capacity to 16 in each classroom. Where I've walked through there, Sam and I have walked through there, and with the right architectural plans, you could really have class sizes of up to 25, let's say, and maybe get more kids in. And they actually have 3 different spaces that they're talking about that could be utilized if it's done right.
So you're going to keep the same footprint of the classrooms, but just reconfigure it differently.
Exactly. And then make sure that we have the right electricity and, that it's coded correctly for fire marshal purposes with the new ovens, that kind of thing.
So you turn away 100 about, and by spending, I'm going to say $670,000 eventually, you're going to only get 18 of those 100 in.
Well, I'm not sure that would be the number because you have to think about the full schedule. If you're adding in, let's say, another 25 kids each period over the time. So,
Yeah, that was kind of my question. I was trying to get a feel for, I got an idea about the increase in student numbers in the class, but over a given year, how many students are going through a culinary art class right now? And along with that, how many teachers are there? That'd help.
Yeah, there are 2 teacher chefs. They're chefs that have become certified teachers. And they really do a remarkable job. It was just actually on Facebook that they really won an award for their work. And, they are able to service the community in a sense. They learn all the skills that you would need for, working in the culinary field. I would also just say that before I got here, remember there was a referendum for Fitch and only part of the building was reconstructed. So we have what we call the vintage side of Fitch. And I know Sam has just done a lot of work with asbestos and, we shut the school down so he could get to the asbestos, but that side of Fitch, which is our business and our careers end, it's really outdated. And so this would just be, I think, a step in the right directions to be able to get this culinary up and at 'em and, be able to provide a better space that would be utilized by more kids.
And so 2 teachers, how many students per year right now go through?
I'd have to ask Principal Kelleher or, take a look at it. I just remember the number 100 weren't able to take part.
So 100 wanted to and weren't able to.
Right.
Okay.
100 more than what is already there.
Okay. And so basically that's you'd be looking at this isn't just a numbers game for students, but you're looking at least hopefully supporting 100 more students.
Right.
And do these classes, these culinary arts classes, it's definitely a career pathway, but does it fit within these kind of career pathway groups already? Because that's something that we've made a move towards supporting.
Yes, we really have. And, not only career pathways, but we actually are authorized not only for middle years program with International Baccalaureate, but with careers program. So a student can get a certification in culinary, could get a certification in IB careers. So, you know, it adds that rigor to the careers program with having an IB, you know, and having a certification that you can actually go right into the business section, you know, and start your work. So.
And the ovens really aren't working. I mean, they're not.
No,
they can't-
I mean,
they
there's
have
maybe a
stovetop.
couple. I mean, I think they're not turquoise, but they're goldenrod. So they're like back from the 70s when I was a kid.
But you said you got new ones though, right?
We do. We got the ovens from Perkins Grant, but
Okay.
we just need to be able to make sure that our room is capable of, you know, is safeguarded to be able to use it, and that, you know, we can get the best situation or footprint. That's why the study's necessary.
Okay, so thanks for bringing up the Perkins Grant again. Sorry. So those new ovens are in use, right? And
We haven't, no, they haven't been installed yet.
can they be without this reconfiguration, or they just wait, or what happens?
Yeah, they can be, but I think the study is pretty important to that, to see how we want to put them in the right way.
Kind of like putting irrigation before
Yeah.
sodding.
I don't know if it's as bad as that.
Mike, I wasn't done when you called on me last time, if you don't mind.
Oh yeah, sorry about
Okay.
that.
So again, I just want to reiterate that we just are paying for the schools for the next 20 years. And I mean, right now for next year, it says 600,000, but it's probably going to be more by next year. And we really need to make sure we do CIPs for the rest of the town to keep it up. And I totally understand what you're saying about the culinary arts. I agree with it, but again, I have to look out for the taxpayers, and it's just like we can't afford everything all at once, and we've kicked all these CIPs down the road for a long time for the rest of the town, and now it's, you know, it's got to be their turn.
I also would say, Kathy, where the equipment cost, that is something that we do get a Perkins Grant every year, so we can take on some of that responsibility. I know that Sam's group is just very talented with construction, but we probably will need a construction company. But we will also, I think once I have the study, I'll know more about what actually needs to happen.
Can I ask, and maybe Sam can answer this. I've been wanting to ask this question forever. What costs so much to do a study? I mean, when I had my kitchen done, they came in and looked and said, oh, we're going to do it this way, that way, and the other way, and we're done. What costs so much money for these studies?
Well, we're hiring an architect first of all, and they get rates that are probably pretty close to attorney's fees, right? And they're hiring consultants to do electrical engineering, plumbing engineering, all the rest of that stuff too. So all those professionals cost quite a bit of money in the end.
And of your many talented people that you have on staff, they can't do some of that work?
Yeah, this is beyond our capability, and really the state, if we're going to apply for any reimbursement for this, the state would require us to hire professionals to do that. I wouldn't
So-
say we couldn't do it, but the state would frown upon it.
So again, this is something that we might get reimbursed for.
Possibility we'd apply for a grant.
Yeah, honestly, you should always put that in your narrative. That's a good lead in.
That is good. You're right, Kathy.
And we have two hands raised. I wasn't watching who was first. I guess Representative Junipero, would you like to speak first, and correct me on your name? I've
Sure,
got it every way wrong, I think, at this point.
that's okay. You can just say Emma, but
That's not a right way we should do things, though.
no, I know. I guess I was just wondering if you're able to do the renovations and accommodate more students, do you need to hire more staff?
No, not according to what our numbers are. The board actually has, we have numbers by contract, and then we have numbers that the board looks at. And that should not be a problem at all.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thanks. Representative Gustafson?
All right, so with the 600,000 for 24, 400 is construction, 200 is for equipment. It seems like you could probably push off the 200 to 25 and go with the 400 to 2024. You think that would be something that would be doable?
Yeah, and like I said, if we continue to get the Perkins grant, we've already gotten some of the equipment through Perkins this year. And we can continue to do that because we really are using Perkins as a focus for this culinary arts, because we feel that this is the next area that really needs improvement for the sake of the student body, because it is an industry in this area that many do look to get their first job and, or maybe even have a career in it.
So theoretically, you could probably have, maybe not all, but a good portion of that equipment,
Yeah.
I say, 24-ish, yeah.
And if Sam goes after that grant, who knows where we'll be. But right now I have to get the study done first before I even worry about the next phase.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. Actually, I see Chair Watson has her hand up, and I don't know how
Yeah.
long that's been there. Sorry.
No, it hasn't. It just went up. Because I just, I am so appreciative of Superintendent Austin's enthusiasm about how we educate our kids. And this has always been one of our goals of the board, is to make sure that we have college ready and career ready. And so that's actually why we had gotten the career pathways program, so that we can really sort of enrich our high school experience for whatever. We are hoping to make sure that we can get as much money. And as Representative Chase has stated, we're always going to look for grants and ways to be able to fund our programs. But I don't want it to be on record that that's how we're going to pay for the next phase and have you guys feel like we have led you on. We try very hard to do all those things, and we're going to hope for that. We're going to work towards that. We're not going to sit on our back and not do anything. But I just want to make sure that people are clear that that's what we're going to try to do. That's going to be our efforts, but it may not be, or may not be successful. So I don't want people to come back and say, oh, Board of Education, you misled us in that conversation. So I just kind of wanted to go on record for that.
One comment to follow on that, for many grants, the planning has to be done. We've seen this on the town side too. The planning has to be done in order to apply for a grant.
Yes, that's right.
So that is oftentimes it's a necessary first step. For me, I think it's important for career pathways and not even just careers, as you said. Very often, employment in restaurants is sort of the entry into workforce, and if you can be the difference between right out in front versus cooking, for instance, it changes the experience entirely. And the skills mastery is there too. So this is really a life skill, whether it's
Right.
part of a ultimate career or not. And then I'm just taking a broader context, making a comment here. I've got the list of CIPs, all of them, and I counted 37 of them. And going through the list, the town council zeroed out, I think it's maybe 5 of them. And 3 of them are 3 of the 4 CIPs for education. Of course, one of them we went through with HVAC, had a good reason for seeking alternate ways. And we appreciate that for the schools to do that. But then the other 2 are North Stonington Road Bridge, and it's zeroed out because Stonington won't pay for it. The other half, the bridge to nowhere, we don't want. Although that's in my district and a real need. And then the other one is open space acquisition, and that's it. So everything else is filled in across the town, and I feel like there's no question that part of Fitch saying it's vintage is fair to say. Sometimes things get better with age, but apparently the the culinary space did not. And so I think we have a responsibility to at least do the planning and see where we are with that going forward, and not to wait on that either. And this need not come out of, and that actually, so that's my statement. My understanding, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, is that this could not come out of ARP ESSER funds. However, it could be supported by the town's ARPA fund. So my question to you is, could it come out of ARP ESSER funds? That's my question.
No, it could not, because it wasn't planned for, and there's nothing that could even look like, sound like, be like COVID related with it, and you know, and lost learning. You know, it's really an architectural issue.
Couldn't go for the comfort food angle.
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments? All right, so right now we are on the first amended number. Someone else can put up another number, and I'll just wait for a moment for that. But if not, I'll call the vote on that number. All right, so we're going to vote on the first amended number for capital improvement project 5E, Fitch High School Culinary Arts, for $70,000. That was moved by Representative Gustafson and seconded by Representative Whitney. And I'll do a roll call vote for this as well. Representative Chase?
No.
Representative Frickman?
No.
Representative Junipero?
No.
Representative Gustafson?
Yes.
And Representative Whitney is a yes. That motion fails, and it fails. I guess it fails. 2 in favor, 3 opposed. Let me just write that down so I have that. So that's 2 in favor and 3 opposed. All right. And I'm going to check through. I know that's the end of the accounts we have to deal with, but just let me call up the agenda to see if there's not some
We have
tailing.
to vote on the other one, Mike.
We have to vote on the zero, Mike.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry. Yes. Oh, man. I'd come back to that, like call you 11 o'clock at night or something, which it almost is. Maybe. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. So let me get that out first. Okay. So is there any other discussion or comments? We're now on to the original number of 0. Okay. So I'm going to call a vote on that. This is for CIP 5E, Fitch High School Culinary Arts, for $0. That was moved by Representative Chase and seconded by Representative Frickman. And I'll do the roll call vote for that too. Let me just, Representative Chase?
Yes.
Representative Frickman?
Yes.
Representative Junipero?
Yes.
And Representative Gustafson?
No.
And Representative Whitney is a no, and that passes 3 in favor, 2 opposed. All right, thank you. I was trying to rush it through there a little bit. Okay, so let me just check the agenda because sometimes there's a tailing item at the end. Now, we have nothing else on the agenda because we have not, so the next item on agenda is consideration of committee referral items as per referral list. We have nothing this time. And so the next item is adjournment, and I'd be happy to take a motion to
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
That's seconded by everyone. I'll give that to Representative Frickman.
All right.
Sometimes that's a race in the big RTM. Okay, so all in favor, you can just wave. Or you have to roll call for this one. All right, we are adjourned at 9:58.
Thank you all for having us.
Thank
so
you.
much.
We
Thank
really
you very
appreciate it, all the time that you donate to this town.
And-
Much
and-
appreciated, all the volunteers who are on here. And actually Zoom worked this time, right, Mike?
Oh, yeah. It took out a whole set of possible problems,
I
But
know.
meant we were relying on one way of doing it.
Yeah, that's right. All right. Well, thank you all.